The Great Barrier Reef is Australia's beauteous crown. It is unparalleled and stuns the eyes of the onlooker. Yet, everything beautiful always stands the risk of being targeted by drooling, frothing, ugly predators. Xi Jinping is one such predator. In fact, he is the biggest of the predators. His unwanted advances against the Great Barrier Reef have not been given a miss by anybody. Xi Jinping is a wanton harasser. He simply has no respect for humans, animals, and nature. All he wants is global domination. And to achieve that end, this madman is willing to go to any extent. It is therefore not surprising that Xi Jinping has suddenly found love for the beautiful blue seas and the marine life therein. China releases shiploads of human waste into the seas. But when it comes to Australia, oh boy, the Great Barrier Reef is under threat. But Australia is having none of Xi's nonsense. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm your host, Atul Mishra. And in this video, I will tell you how the mighty beauty of the Great Barrier Reef has caught the dirty eyes of Xi Jinping. Let's begin. The Great Barrier Reef off the east coast of Australia stretches over more than 134,000 square miles. It occupies an area larger than that of Italy. The Great Barrier Reef is home to a spectacular array of corals and colorful fishes. The Great Barrier Reef can be seen from outer space and is the world's biggest single structure made by living organisms. Approximately 2 million people visit the Great Barrier Reef each year. The reef is a major income source for Australia's central Queensland, raking in over $6 billion every day. The Great Barrier Reef also supports approximately 60,000 jobs. Visibly, Australia prides itself for the Great Barrier Reef. However, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, is trying to shut down the Great Barrier Reef, snatching the 60,000 jobs from individuals who earn their livelihoods due to the hustle and bustle in the region. The UNESCO wants to make one of the most visited Australian tourist sites an effective no man's land. Why is the UNESCO doing so, you might ask? Well, China has deep pockets and it has come to dominate the UNESCO. Now, UNESCO is functioning as a front organization of the Communist Party of China. Last month, 12 countries in UNESCO's World Heritage Committee voted for a draft ruling that the Great Barrier Reef was in the danger of losing its World Heritage status due to the impacts of climate change. Effectively, the UNESCO was on the cusp of downgrading the environmental health status of the Great Barrier Reef, thus subverting coastal Queensland's agricultural, manufacturing, and tourism industries. UNESCO's World Heritage Committee, by the way, happens to be chaired by the CCP's Vice Minister for Education. 14 of this co-opted committee's 21 members have signed Xi Jinping's neo-colonial Belt and Road Initiative of the BRI, binding them in China's glorious debt trap. Australia has seen right through China's attempts at trying to derail the down-under tourism industry. Federal Environment Minister Susan Ley said the process was politicized and didn't follow due process, including a site visit. She also alleges that UNESCO unfairly targeted Australia over its climate policy. Ley added, if it is being proposed on the basis of the very real threat of global climate change, then there are any number of international World Heritage sites that should be subject to the same process. Since last month, Susan Ley has been busy lobbying Europe to stall the devious Chinese moves at UNESCO. Australian efforts bore fruit as the country received the support from 12 other nations to delay the decision on the Barrier Reef until 2023. This is enough for a clear majority. China, meanwhile, has said politics has nothing to do with the anti-Australian proceedings of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee. Tian Shuijun, who is the Chinese Vice Minister of Education, said Australia, as a member state of the World Heritage Committee, should attach importance to the opinions of the advisory bodies and earnestly fulfill the duties of World Heritage protection instead of making groundless accusations against other states. China's pro-activism regarding coral reefs is quite ironic, considering the fact that it is destroying coral life in the South China Sea by building artificial islands for military purposes. China is committing crimes of unimaginable magnitude against nature in the West Philippines. A US-based expert claimed recently that human waste and sewage from hundreds of Chinese ships parked in the South China Sea and sections of the West Philippine Sea is causing huge marine harm to the resource-rich waters of the region. Chinese ships have been dumping raw sewage on reefs every day for several years in the West Philippine Sea, causing dangerous chlorophylla blooms in the waterway. While the UNESCO World Heritage Tag can encourage tourism by giving an incentive to governments to protect cultural or environmental treasures, for such landmarks to be placed on the endangered list can be a stain on the country's honor, with tourism at such sites receiving a massive setback. However, in a magnanimous defeat for China, Australia has been able to get the support of required UN members to avoid an endangerment tag.